This story takes place 27 years after the First Corporate War. The Nest by Sean Carrière. Chapter 3. 5 minutes later, Colonel Drake was sitting with Kyle in his motel room and pouring the young bounty hunter a second belt of scotch.
Good stuff. Ain't enough O's in the word smooth,
Kyle said as he dropped a fresh ice cube into his drink.
Now that you got me liquored up, what's the job?
Colonel Drake was about to pour himself another drink as well, but decided against it.
Danny Blue escaped custody today while being transported up to Gateway City from Border Town Prison.
This clearly got Kyle's full attention as he sat up straighter than usual.
Danny Blue? When did it happen?
The young bounty hunter asked, hearing the disbelief in his own voice. Colonel Drake put the bottle on the table before reaching a hand into his pocket.
Just over 8 hours ago, members of his gang intercepted the prisoner transport at a checkpoint about 60 clicks down the road.
The colonel said matter-of-factly. Kyle took a sip of scotch before asking the obvious.
Why hasn't anyone caught him yet? Border town's south of him, and we're north. There's no place for him to go.
Colonel Drake pulled a micro-disc out of his pocket with one hand as he picked up the remote for the room's TV with the other. The colonel answered.
They took a route no one expected they'd take.
Colonel Drake slipped the micro-disc into the remote and pointed the device at the flat-screen monitor along the side wall opposite from the beds.
Other than your team, you don't say anything to anyone about what I'm going to show you. Is that clear?
The colonel said in a sterner, more authoritative tone than usual. Kyle downed his drink, reached for the bottle, and nodded to the colonel, who then hit the remote's play button. Up on the flat screen appeared a satellite image of the surrounding 500-kilometer area. Kyle could easily make out Iron Horse as well as Border Town paralleling the mountains. Kyle felt confused, not knowing what he was supposed to be looking at. Kyle was just about to ask the colonel what his point was when he noticed a red blinking light in a shaded area of the satellite image, off to the left side of the screen. Kyle nearly dropped the bottle when he recognized where the blinking light was.
Colonel, no disrespect,
Kyle began.
but you gotta be shitting me.
Sorry, Kyle. I'm as serious as my last divorce on this one.
The colonel began.
Danny Blue tried making his getaway by cutting through the C-zone.
Colonel Drake then adjusted the image and zoomed in on the ghost city along the southern tip of the C-zone. The red blinking light was focused on a narrow, 4-story building in the center of a suburban market square. Kyle looked from the satellite image on the flat screen back to the colonel.
He tried?
Colonel Drake smiled as he answered the young bounty hunter.
Danny Blue's luck finally ran out when he crashed his ride halfway through the C-zone.
Colonel Drake then pointed Kyle to keep looking at the flat screen.
We picked up a distress call Danny Blue made to the rest of his gang from inside the zone. He's communicating with them using a satellite phone and giving us his exact location while he's at it.
The colonel said through a shit-eating grin. Kyle shook his head and went back to pouring himself a drink.
So, let's just leave him in there. Even if Danny Blue's gang can get to him and bring him back out of the C-zone, they'll all soak up enough radiation to be dead in a couple of days. Problem solved.
Colonel Drake then hit a series of buttons on the remote, and the image on the TV changed from a clear satellite picture to a blotchy, multicolored mess with the blinking light still in the same place on the screen.
See that dark orange strip going right to left across the lower part of the screen?
The colonel asked.
Yeah.
Answered Kyle.
That's a lower radiation alley cutting through the C-zone.
Colonel Drake began to explain.
We estimate someone wearing appropriate equipment can survive up to 40 hours within this alley before absorbing a lethal dose of radiation.
Pretty narrow alley, Colonel.
Kyle said before taking another sip of his drink. Colonel Drake nodded and answered back with,
That's right, Kyle. Did you notice the signal is coming from within that narrow alley?
Kyle had noticed, but he didn't want to say anything. But his silence didn't do him any good.
It'll be at least 24 hours before Danny Blue's gang can reach him.
Colonel Drake began to explain.
If you and your team leave at sunup, you could recapture the target and have him back here by sundown.
Kyle put down his drink before speaking.
Too risky, Colonel. I'm sorry.
Colonel Drake didn't get to where he was by taking no for an answer, and negotiation was where he truly shined.
How does 5 million sound?
Kyle's eyes widened like saucers at the ridiculously high figure being thrown at him. Before he could ask Colonel Drake if he was serious, the old man raised a finger.
Danny Blue spent 4 years at the top of the wanted list, and he embarrassed the army at every turn.
The colonel explained.
Top brass wants to see the bastard dance a jig at the end of a rope, and they've authorized me to make it worth the risk. 5 million, Kyle. You'll never see a payday like this again.
Kyle rubbed his chin pensively for several seconds, carefully weighing the pros versus the cons. Kyle looked Colonel Drake in the eye and gave what he thought was his final answer.
Sorry, Colonel. It's a real tempting offer, but I can't order my team to do something this dangerous.
The colonel was unfazed by Kyle's refusal to do the job. Instead, the silver-tongued army officer smiled and said,
Okay, how about we just ask them